think we're too busy. We're too busy fighting the West. We're too busy fighting the white people. And these people, let me tell you, they have no time for us. No time. If you, right now I'm calling you from America today. I'm supposed to go back home tomorrow. But I'm calling you from America today, and I'm telling you, Americans could care less. I mean, the ordinary African, the ordinary American, you could line them, if their life depended on it, they could not name 3 African countries to you.
Hi, my name is Joseph Patterson. Welcome to One Jamaica TV. This is the place of choice for all who love this country and want to see the nation succeed. All right, hello and welcome to One Jamaica TV. My name is Joseph Patterson, and today we'll be speaking with Magatte Wade of Senegal about emancipating ourselves. First, I want to give a big shout out to all of our viewers and fans on UIC Liberty TV, UIC Jamaica TV, all of you over there on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Thank you all so very much for your support. And please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe to help us reach much more people. Magatte, welcome to One Jamaica TV, and thank you for agreeing to be here to share your African perspective on emancipating ourselves.
I'm very well, thank you, Joseph, and thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
I want to learn a little bit about you, for our viewers to learn a little bit about you before we go in. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Magatte.
Yeah, so I won't go into all the details because I'm sure you have all of these questions that are going to take us there. But on a nutshell, I'm an entrepreneur, like I said, and I'm from Senegal, west coast of Africa. And I'm an entrepreneur, obviously, and I also am a very big advocate on the concept of the free markets. I am and I like to call myself a prosperity activist. Insofar as everybody wants to call it activist, I'm a prosperity activist for Africa.
Wow, I like that, a prosperity activist. I've never heard that phrase before, so I'm going to probably borrow it sometime. Prosperity activist. This means you are pretty much focused on helping people to prosper, right? That's a way of saying it?
Yes, very much. My whole goal, and I know that the entire focus of your show primarily is around emancipation, especially emancipation for Black people and African people. And my simple view is there will be no emancipation for us, truly, until and unless we have economic power. It's that simple. And economic power comes with prosperity building. So that's why I'm focused on prosperity.
Very simple and very straightforward. There is no emancipation without economic prosperity, bottom line. Yeah. All right. I want to play a little video on Senegal, and I want to get your perspective on that to let us know if that's a true depiction of your country. So I'm hoping Kevin can play that for us. Kevin, can you?
Today we're exploring Senegal, an enchanting destination known for its historical landmarks, sensational surfing scene, and killer hippos. Stay with us until the end to learn more about its stunning geography, history, and culture. Senegal is a country located in West Africa. It has a long coastline along the Atlantic Ocean to the west and is bordered by Mauritania to the north, Mali to the east, and Guinea-Bissau to the south. Senegal has a varied geography featuring coastal plains, rivers, dry savannas, and semi-arid regions. Senegal's coastline stretches 300 miles from north to south along the Atlantic Ocean. Coastal plains make up the western third of the country, featuring beaches, dunes, estuaries, and marshes. The Cap Vert Peninsula juts out into the ocean near the capital, Dakar, which has served as an important port city for centuries. Mangroves and lagoons dot the coast, providing important habitats. The Senegal River forms a natural border between Senegal and Mauritania to the north. It is an essential source of fresh water and transportation in the region. The Saloum River separates the Cap Vert Peninsula from mainland Senegal. Its delta features mangrove swamps teeming with wildlife. The Gambia River flows through the narrow country of Gambia, which is mostly surrounded by Senegal. In addition to mining, Senegal's diverse geography and landscapes are a draw for tourists. One unique landmark is Lac Rose, also known as the Pink Lake.
Is this true? Is this really true?
Yeah. The pink lake is still there. It's very hard and rare to see it this pink though, because you have to have a right sun exposure, and also it depends on which time of the year, the algae, if you have a lot of them or not, because it's all because of the algae and the way they react to the sun rays.
Right. And so far, everything you've seen so far, that's an accurate depiction of your country, right?
So far, yeah, the visuals, yeah, it's there.
All right, let's continue.
Large saltwater lake gets its pink hue from algae that thrive in its salty waters. The pink color is especially prominent during the dry season. Lac Rose has become a popular spot for tourists to visit and is representative of Senegal's natural wonders. The Senegalese population of over 17 million is predominantly Muslim, but also includes Christians, animists, and people of other faiths. The main ethnic groups in Senegal are the Wolof, Fula, Serer, Jola, Mandinka, and Soninke. The Wolof are the largest group concentrated in coastal regions. The Fula, or Fulani people, are traditionally nomadic herders. The Serer live south of Dakar and have strong cultural traditions. Other groups include the Diola in the Casamance region and the Maras, who live near the northern border. Islam is the predominant religion in Senegal.
Do you have a lot of ethnic conflicts between these various tribal groups?
No, Senegal, really, we're very lucky in this sense that we have a very good sense of, cohesion between the different ethnicities. So it's we're very good at coming together and staying together. I must say we're very blessed from that standpoint.
Did you have problems in the past that you have worked out, or has it always been?
No, I mean, as long as I remember it and the history of it. So right now, the one unrest you have is still in the Casamance area, the one that we're talking about, this last one, where the Diolas are primarily, and it's in the south of Senegal. And Casamance is also more like it's a very green, lush, part of Senegal. And so there definitely has been, a separatist movements, and I think it goes with them thinking, okay, we're along the river and we have everything we need here. Why do we need the rest of the country? So you have had a separatist movement, not so much along not so much really about ethnic lines per se, but more about territorial lines. So that has been going on, but I can't sit here and tell you that, it's like it had been a big problem. Sometimes it's more, intense than other time, but for the most part, it's usually, rather well under control. So, but there, yeah.
Okay, great. I mean, so it's pretty cohesive for the most part in Senegal at the moment, right?
Yeah, and really, I mean, people have to know that Senegal, along with Botswana, are the only two countries in Africa that never had a coup, never had a civil war. To this day.
That's interesting. And why do you think that's the case? What has led to it being so stable from that perspective?
Yeah, I think that Senegalese, for the longest time, we have had a more we have had for the longest time a culture of again, this social cohesion that we have among ourselves is very profound. And I would also credit the religious brotherhoods that we have in Senegal. We have four main ones, on the Sufi side. And by the way, Senegalese are Sufis. Sufism is the mystic branch of Islam. Many Muslim actually will tell you, oh, you guys are not practicing real Islam, you're a sect. But for whatever you want to call us, it's primarily Muslim. 95% of the population is Muslim. The rest of it is primarily Catholic. And pretty much in all the families, you have these two main religions, kind of mixed in. And going back to the brotherhoods, I think they have done an amazing job of maintaining a sense of peace. So whenever there's, and also the clergy in Senegal as well. So meaning the spirit, the religious leaders on both sides have always been very good of, for the most part, staying on the side of religion. And as you know, in Senegal, religion is separate from the state, just like in any, like, yeah. So our religious leaders, whether Catholic or, Muslim, have always been very good at saying, we only care about the matters of religion. And they stay within that realm normally. And the only time they get involved in the affairs of politics or whatever is when perhaps people are starting to be mad at each other, or they feel unrest might happen. Then they come out and they ask everybody to calm down, reminding everybody that it's in peace that anything can be done. So peace first, always foremost. And you have to also know that the Sufis are known for their commitment to peace, love, and tolerance, literally. And the religious leader, the founding leader of the leading brotherhood in Senegal, which is the Murid, of which I'm part of. What we're known, I mean, he fought the French and he fought against oppression at a time as a principled non-violent activist before Gandhi, before Martin Luther King, before any of that. We never hear about it, but this concept of principled non-violence act, like fire. And so we have a very strong, tradition of and being attached to it. Yeah.
So why do you think we don't hear about that in the normal discourse of non-violence? We always hear about Gandhi, of course. We hear about Martin Luther King. Why don't we hear about what's the name of this person?
Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba, the founder, or Sheikh Khadim Rasoul. So
okay, help me out with the pronunciation here. Help me with the pronunciation. Say it again for me.
You can. I'll give you the first one. Would be easier for you. Sheikh Ahmadou Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba.
Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba.
There you go. Okay. You said it.
Wonderful.
You said it.
Thank you.
So
excellent.
You're very welcome. So to answer your question, I believe that oftentimes Africans are always very quick at saying, "Oh, people don't know about our story because the West doesn't want them to know about our story." And you know what? When you ask that question, I say it's our fault. It's our fault if our people don't know enough about our leaders, what they did right, what they did wrong. And in my case, that's why I'm very happy you're asking me about this, and I bring it up everywhere when I can. I bring up this concept in Senegal. Oftentimes many Africans don't know it's only 2 countries in Africa that never had a coup, never had a civil war, and I bring up Botswana. So I think it's us. We need to talk about these things, but instead we're always tempted to talk about some of the usual actors that the rest of the world knows, and usually those actors are known for not great stuff. I mean, and perhaps you'll be mad at me, but when you bring up even the stories of people always say, "Oh, Muhammad Gaddafi, of Libya, was this great, leader." Okay, I'm not. You won't hear me say that, but again, we always.
I'm welcoming this. I love to hear this.
But to me, you go back and you take a look at this man and what he was really practicing. Like, do you really believe that you were in a country where Africans are always the first one to be like to talk about democracy? And that whole conversation is a whole other one also that you'll probably know what I think of at some point. But insofar you have people, I never understand, what do you guys want? On one side they're always talking about democracy, so and so running for presidency for 3rd, 4th time is not respecting democracy. So there is democracy. And then you look at somebody like Gaddafi, all of a sudden, do you not remember that this guy was in power for decades? Do you not remember that this guy was not, there was really no freedom for people? Do you not remember all of that? So I find us very confusing. I find us Africans very confusing. So it seems to me like we're not running and we're not walking in with principles. It's all,
it's emotional. It's all emotional.
It's
Yeah,
very
it's not
emotional.
principle. Yeah.
There's no, like, I don't find us as principled people. You see,
Hmm.
Sheikh Ahmadou Bamba was a principled man, right? And so he doesn't say peace here one day and the next day, oh, it's totally fine to do war over there. No, you're a person of principle. And I feel like us Africans, oftentimes, we're lacking principles and we're lacking philosophies. What do we stand for? And we don't have to all stand for the same thing, but
Hmm.
what do we stand for in this world? What? I don't think we really, many of us have really sat down and tried to understand what is it that we believe in this world. And you know why I think that is the case, Joseph? I think
Hmm.
we're too busy. We're too busy fighting the West. We're too busy
Hmm.
fighting the white people. And these
Right.
people, let me tell you, they have no time for us. No time.
Yeah.
Right now I'm calling you from America today. I'm supposed to go back home tomorrow. Um, but I'm calling you from America today, and I'm telling you, Americans could care less. I mean, the ordinary African, the ordinary American, you could line them, if their life depended on it, they could not name 3 African countries to you. That's the ordinary African. Now, the
Hmm.
American state might be a different thing, and it depends who within the American government. But
Hmm.
even there, when America thinks about Africa, it's even at the government level, Africa is just this, for them, it's this wrongfully. It's this
Hmm.
tiny place because they can't really. So my point is, guys, we need to stop living our lives in
Hmm.
this battle where actually there is only one side that's fighting, because the other side doesn't even think of you. They don't even think of you. They don't even know of your existence. And we're always sitting there, and our whole existence is about pushing back on these people. And because of that, I think that's the only thing we have that's constant. And it is
Is that because of our leaders? Those who we have had as leaders, have they led us down the path to focus on us versus them as opposed to
whoa.
what we need to do?
Oh yeah, I definitely think that while our leaders, and I think we all of us can agree that our leaders we have 54 of them on this nation, and I think there is a handful of them that some of us would say are somewhat decent. For the rest of them, you can line them up, and there's issues everywhere. And our people, when you ask them what is going on, instead of really assessing what's going on, and
Mhm.
put blame where blame is due in a very fair way, instead, no, it's always always fall back on the West. The West won't let us, or the West doesn't want us to succeed, or the
Yeah.
West this, or the West that.
Or if we try, the West is going to stop us, or something like that.
Exactly.
I hear it
Exactly.
all the time. I'm a political figure here, so every time I'm like, "We can do this." Well, that sounds very good, but they're going to stop you. I'm like, why don't we just do it? We don't have to worry about them stopping us. But yeah,
Yeah.
all right. But
Yeah.
let's go back to. I want to just finish up the video here.
Most Muslims in Senegal follow Sufi traditions and brotherhoods. Christianity arrived later during colonialism, but remains a minority religion. Many people also maintain indigenous animist beliefs alongside Islam and Christianity. While French is the official language, several native languages are widely spoken, including Wolof, Fula, Sera, Jola, Mandinka, and Soninke. Wolof has emerged as a main language and is spoken by 80 to 90% of Senegalese. Arabic has significance as well due to the Muslim population. The diverse landscape of local languages represents an integral part of Senegal's cultural heritage.
How many national languages do you have?
Oh, there is a lot. There is a lot. I mean, for me, I stop usually at 12, 15, or something like that. But there's many more. But there's quite a bit. But the Wolof one, of which I'm of the Wolof ethnicity background. So we are the most representative. We are in a way the dominant one. So
Okay.
almost everyone will speak Wolof.
Okay,
And
good.
for somebody that's not Wolof, they would also speak their own dialect, but
All right.
almost everybody speaks Wolof.
What about French? Is that-
Uh, so French is the official language. So and that's a big problem because it's the official language, but I can tell you that 80% of Senegalese people
Don't speak
don't
it.
don't it, and if they speak it, they're going to speak it in a very, very broken way.
Okay.
And that is a problem. And we can probably just talk about it.
So in the school system, they teach Wolof as a first language, or no?
No. So what you so just so people understand the issue here, and I'm dealing with this every day because I also have a school. We started our school. It's an entrepreneurial school that we started originally for the children of our workers in Senegal, but now we have other kids from the community. So in Senegal, the official language is French. So which means, and especially people from modest background, right? Especially countryside. But so imagine, Joseph, your child is born, and let's say you're an English speaking, you're Senegalese, and your kid, that's what they're going to hear you speak, because you also happen to be, you're not very literate in French either. You don't speak French that well. You probably stopped school when you were 9 or 10 or whatever. You don't speak French. Forget it. You can say bonjour, merci, au revoir, a few things like that. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but you speak Wolof. You speak Wolof. Right. That's your mother tongue language. And so your child, it's like normal. She's gonna hear, you talk to her, and you'll say, Awa. Awa is a typical Senegalese name. Awa, indil masisbi. That means Awa, bring me the chair. So when little Awa, she's 3 years old, she hears you say that. By then, she knows Indian Masisbi means bring me the chair. So she'll go get the chair, bring it for you. No problem. Now Awa is 6 years old. That's when school is starts to become mandatory.
What do you call that school? What's the name of that school? Early childhood, basic school?
At that age, they're gonna go in primary. They're starting primary school.
Primary at 6.
School. Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything before primary? Is there like a
some people may have pre-K, so you can go to Jardin. You can go to Jardin d'Enfants from 3 to 6. But most parents, especially from modest backgrounds, if it's not an obligation yet, it will wait.
Okay.
So it's at around that age 6 that it is obligatory, but that year when the kid is going to be 6. So now your daughter is there. She's heard her whole life. She knows all the things you're telling her. Anything you talk to her in Wolof, she's got it. She's good. And now she shows up in the school, and all of a sudden there is this language. From now on, everything has to be in French. And now she hears, Awa, emmène-moi la chaise. Awa is looking at you with round eyes. She doesn't know what you're talking about. And then Awa is also supposed to learn how to read and write in this language. But reading is only language decoding. So it's important to speak a language first before you can start to decode it and so that big jump is not done well. So many kids are left behind. And because also there's so many kids, the demographic, the demographic is growing so fast that you have these kids who, after first grade, normally should be staying in first grade because they have not really acquired everything they were supposed to acquire. But it's not. But we can't afford to leave them in first grade because more are coming after them, and so now you're going to have these classes that are even more bloated. This is a real problem, and we have not figured it out. So we act like this, that everything is fine, but no, nothing is fine. This is not fine.
Yeah. So basically, you have a literacy problem, you have a numeracy problem, and therefore you have even a productivity problem later on because of all of that. All right, let's continue here, and then we'll come back.
The cuisine of Senegal is one of the most delicious and diverse in West Africa. It reflects influences from North Africa, Europe, and beyond. Senegalese dishes make abundant use of locally grown ingredients like millet, rice, fish, chicken, vegetables, and exotic spices. Here are 4 iconic Senegalese that are a must-try. First up is tieboudion, considered the national dish of Senegal. It consists of seasoned rice, fish, and vegetables. Onions, tomatoes, carrots, cabbage, manioc, eggplant, and more are added to rice and fish, seasoned with herbs. Every family has their own version, but tieboudion always delivers an explosion of flavors. Next is tiebou diola, the signature dish of the Diola people. It's made by layering rice, fish, and tomato sauce, seasoned with garlic, parsley, and lemon. Versions with manioc sweet potato or bean fritters are also common. The rice soaks up the rich tomato broth for a comforting hearty meal. Soup candia is a meat and vegetable soup that packs some spice. It starts with a base of beef, fish or chicken stewed with onions, garlic, chilies and cubed eggplant. Okra, potato, carrots, cabbage and turnips are also added for variety. The spicy, aromatic broth is served with white rice for a warming and very flavoursome soup. Finally, vermicelle poulet features chicken served over vermicelli noodles. Shredded chicken is cooked in a blend of onion, garlic, ginger, chili pepper, tomatoes and peanut butter for an irresistible sauce. It's ladled over vermicelli noodles for a simple yet deeply satisfying meal.
Do you have a lot of restaurants in Senegal?
Yeah, we have a lot of restaurants. And before I go into that question, Joseph, I forgot to tell you something about the education in the school. So, because you said, do they teach are the schools, teaching in Wolof? Okay, so because of that problem I explained to you, many people are recognizing the problem. And so, but the solution for them is, so then let's teach in the national languages. Let's teach in Wolof. Let's teach in Diola. Let's teach in Serer. I'm like, excuse me, at some point, you're going to have to master this other language that the rest of the world speaks. Okay, so that's not, so when I see everybody being super excited, and here again, instead of thinking about what we need and being pragmatic, we're just thinking about sticking it to the Westerner and
Absolutely.
being like, why do we use their languages? We shouldn't, we should train our kids in our own language. Yeah, they can be the best in math and everything in your own language, but outside of there, we're only 18. They said 17 million. We're roughly now 18 million. We're only 18 million people in the world, us Senegalese, and not even all of us speak Wolof. So if this is a language, and then some other little languages like, Serer and others that you want to teach the kid everything in, and they never really get to learn a language that they can present themselves anywhere and people can understand them, what exactly are you doing? So here we're like, well, that's... And so it's just even there, our pride, our misguided and our misplaced misplaced pride is not allowing us to think pragmatically.
And again, it comes back to our leaders again, Magatte, because what happened is when the people say this, the leaders are afraid to tell them what you just said, right? Good leaders will have to say, listen, I understand where you're coming from, but here are the consequences. You have to think from cause to effect. If we do this, it leads to this. I love, for example, Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, what he did, when it came onto the language issues in his country. He said, listen, let's make English the common language for good reasons. And you can learn one other, your own indigenous language with that. But let's make this the common language. And that was a powerful, powerful decision. I don't know if you know much about him. I think you do. But I love him. Yeah, same here. He's my political hero, if I have to point to anyone. So yeah, but let's continue with the food. I wanted to know, in Jamaica, we love to eat, right? And just looking at your food, my mouth is watering. We love to eat here, and so I was wondering if it's the same in Senegal. Is food a big deal in Senegal? Do you have a lot of restaurants all over the place?
No, food is a big deal, and we love food just like you guys too. I mean, I think all of us do. And yes, we do have restaurants. We have high-end restaurants, and we also, and even with our high-end restaurants, we have a very rich what do I call it? We have a very rich urban restaurant culture, and at all levels, right? So sorry, we have what we call the tanganas. Tanganas are these restaurants. It's like in the hall of a wall, right? And so you'll see these very colorful strands of plastic strands, very colorful. And then you go through them. Behind it, there's a long table and a long bench, and many people are sitting along the bench, and then there's this woman over there who has cooked, and then she's serving all of these different people. It's like an urban restaurant for, like very affordable, super cheap. Today,
Right.
I know that I love going places there, and my friends make fun of me. You know how sometimes the diaspora can be. They're like, "You're eating where?" Yes, I'm eating in the little. It is. But the truth is, many of them, if they go eat very first time, their stomach probably will have to readjust to some of,
Right, some of the viruses and all of that. Yeah. Geez.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can
And
just
so,
imagine. When I went to Ghana, I saw some little restaurants on the side of the streets as well. Sometimes they even sell things on the road, like, for example, food in a plastic bag on the road.
yes.
Do you have that in Senegal as well?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do
So,
that as well. They will grill like grill fish, especially us because we're right by
mhm.
the ocean. So we have this very long culture. I remember when I was a kid, I loved nothing more than fire grilled. What do you call? How do I call it in English? Fire grilled.
Is it like barbecued?
Sardine,
Is it
fire
like,
grilled sardine. It was a
oh,
nice size sardine, and then
yeah,
they would put some
seasoning and spices and stuff
yeah,
in
and
it?
put all the spices. They would cut it up like this, and then
Hmm.
they would put tons of really nice spices after they have and then grill it. And then there was this really nice onion sauce made with mustard and all of that stuff. And then they would use this brown craft paper. And I would go
Hmm.
there, and literally it cost 50 cents back in the days. And that was our snacks. And then you also
Very
had,
local, but very
yeah,
tasty.
yeah, very tasty. And then you had the peanuts. We in Senegal we have this peanut that's roasted in hot sand. It just has a unique taste. So
Roasted
yeah,
and
yeah. So we have street food. We have all of these restaurants. It's just it's a. I mean, our cultures revolve around food. Or everything that's worth celebrating in life, including deaths. We all come around meals. People always meals are there. People are fed, and yeah. So it's a big part of our culture, for sure, for sure.
wonderful, wonderful. All right, let's continue here and see what else they have. It's almost finished.
Strategically located on the farthest point of Africa's west coast, Senegal was an important gateway between African kingdoms and external traders. Its history is marked by early tribal civilizations, the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, and independence. The Senegalese coast was part of large African empires, including Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, in the first millennium AD. The Jolof kingdom emerged in the 14th century with a complex political organization and became a major power in the region. Other early kingdoms included the Tekror in the north and the Serra kingdoms of Sine and Saloum. In the 15th century, Portuguese settlers began trading for slaves along the Senegalese coast to sell in Europe. In the 17th to 18th centuries, the French, British, and Dutch extended the trade. Up to 20,000 slaves were exported per year from Senegal's ports in the horrific transatlantic slave trade that ravaged the region. France gradually exerted colonial control over coastal ports in Senegal from 1659 to 1895. Senegal was part of French West Africa, and Dakar became the capital of all French colonies in 1902. Though France abolished slavery, Senegal's economy remained dependent on producing groundnuts for French industries. Senegal peacefully gained independence from France in 1960, led by Léopold Sédar Senghor. After a brief federation with Mali, the Socialist Party ruled Senegal as a one-party state from independence until 2000, when free elections were held. Senegal has since been praised.
Tell me a little about that. What do you have any background on that transition to independence and anything? A one-party state
Until
a certain,
until 2000, till 2000.
yeah,
So basically, we had basically 40 years of socialism. 40 years.
40 years of socialism. Now let's talk about that. 40 years, 40,
Yep.
4 decades of socialism. How did that impact the country? for better or for worse?
I would argue that where we are today is in part due to that. And you know, the sad thing about all of this, Joseph, is we have never really departed from it, because they say 40 years of socialism, fine, but you know, the people who came after, it was not that different. So first it was Leopold Sédar Senghor. He was there. He did 2 terms, 7 years each, and then the other guy came in, you know, Diouf, Abdi Diouf, and Abdi Diouf was basically the chosen successor of what's his name, of Leopold Sédar Senghor. And by the way, this is also another good thing. You see, Leopold Sédar Senghor, as his name, Leopold, right? French name, which in this case, he's Catholic, right? Catholic, and he came to power in a predominantly Muslim nation. I know the piece said 90% Muslim, but it's really 95% Muslim, and no problem. Nobody had an issue with it. It's, you see what I mean? That's it's unheard of. So those two, they basically ran the same thing. The country socialist, and the Senghor, very close ties to France. The guy, I think, was more French than the French. But one of the good things that he did was at least be strong, be serious about institutions, although it was a one-party state. And then eventually there was a transition of power, and that actually went pretty. There was a little bit of there was some noise. There's some noise. It didn't just happen just like that.
Right. What caused the transition? What caused us to move from this one-party state to?
Well, you had somebody, because you had somebody like eventually he got into power, Abdoulaye Wade, who basically, you know, Abdoulaye Wade is very much, I see him very much as a classical liberal. He very much is a classical liberal. He did not apply it completely while he was a president, but very much like that. So you had people who were fighting for different things, and eventually, you know, one thing leading to another, you know, it started to happen. I was obviously way too young to understand any of his stuff, but I do know that he definitely came with different ideas, and they've been fighting for a very long time. And eventually, you know, we were able to have their party be imposed, the PDS, you know, Parti Démocratique Sénégalais. So, but it was a rocky situation. There was some issues that happened with Mamadou Dia, you know, back in the days. So it was kind of complicated. We didn't get there.
Was there any violence involved? Was there any violence involved in the transition?
There was none of the violence that you could think about, like what happens in other places. This was more violence, more among themselves. Like, you know, Mamadou Dia, for example, being put in jail. Like, they would do things like that to each other, but nothing like where you see uprise of population getting killed, all of that stuff. That's really not what got us there. Definitely, there were some deaths here and there, and one death is always one too many, but nothing like you could imagine would happen.
Right, not a very large scale. Did you have a lot of like election irregularities, you know, ballot box stealing, ballot box stuffing, different, not being able to go into a particular area because if you're identified with this party or the other one, you would be attacked, anything like that?
Not really. I mean, it was not really things like that we heard. You see, I mean, Senegal, again, has this very strong tradition of democracy. So once we decide we're going to go do something, it just happens. And that's why after 40 years, you got a peaceful transition of power from socialist to the liberals. And so...
Classical liberal. Classical
liberal, yes, thank you. Classical liberal. So Abdoulaye Wade came in and he started really opening up, you know, like liberalizing, you know, some industries and all of that. So he definitely brought a lot of that with him. But if you asked me, what needs to happen has still not happened in our country and in pretty much all Francophone African nations for the most part. The biggest issue we have is that one thing that most people don't even pay attention to, it's my big beef, it's when the French left, it was part of a deal for the colonies to retain French civil law, which is inspired by the Napoleonic civil law back in the day. So that's how old this law kind of is. It's a modified version, of course, now, but that's really where it is. So all of these Francophone African nations run on civil law. And we know that in order to build prosperity, it is proven that common law is vastly superior. And as a matter of fact, common law also is one of those law structures that could mix and marry itself very well with some of the very best traditional aspects of whichever our different cultures are, because there are multiple cultures in Africa. But common law, the best way to think about it is like it would be like this universal, almost, law. And then on top of that, you can also mix the very best of your tradition to it to do something a little bit unique. So the French, in my mind, when all these Africans, I hear them, France butt out, France this, France that. I'm like, the one legacy from the French that you do not talk about, you don't even see it. I'm talking to some ministers of economy and finance who ask me, my God, what do you mean? Is there something else than civil law? I'm like, yeah, there's common law. And it's insane, right? It's just like we accepted it. And so you see them complaining about the French, and then they go into the currency. Yeah, we're poor because France controls our currency. That's a whole nother, if you can get me there if you want to, but that's a whole nother thing. France controls it. And I'm like, out of all the nastiness of the legacy that the French left behind, there is one that's really, really, that's really worth cutting out, and it's this civil law. We need to reopen all of this. We need to reconsider everything. Everything has become all of our laws, Joseph, all of these rules and regulations, all copied also from France. And even the French themselves are now trying to do reforms. We never question any of this stuff, whether it is about our labor laws, our tax code, like our banking laws and regulations. While the French are understanding, I mean, I post about this often on my Twitter. Last time I said I agree with Macron right now, because there was a video we chopped off where he was saying that basically the EU is dying because of regulations. I mean, and it is true. The EU, the EU is dying. It is dying. It is decrepit. It's on its deathbed. And they're trying, and the people who know are trying to do what they can to change the trajectory. But us Africans have not even identified the problem in the first place, let alone even talk about it and do something about it.
Let's backtrack a little bit. What is the difference between common law and civil law?
Okay. It's a very complicated. It would take forever for us to go through what it is. Let me walk you through. Let me tell you like the crux of the issue. Think common law, civil law is very top down. So in civil law, you cannot do anything unless you were expressive. You were specifically told that you can't do it. Common law is due until there is a problem. And then where there's a problem, we get together, and then, the judges come together and we can judge the situation. And then from that judgment, a precedent is built for next time, right? Where the civil law, it's anything that's not in the law is not allowed. Now, think about it. One is very good for entrepreneurs trying to innovate, doing this, doing that, and figuring it out. One is very prescriptive. And as a whole,
so one is civil law boxes you into a set of rules that you must follow no matter what, and if there's no rule, you don't do.
Yeah, basically, it's almost like civil law. I have all of these lists, and by the way, who did it come from? From a higher up.
Yeah.
So higher up, because they know more than you, maybe they were more educated than you, whatever, because they were born with that. I don't know. They write down everything that you're allowed to do. So somebody else already thought about what you can do or not do, and you can only do what's in here. If it's not here, don't even go there. Right. Can you imagine? What is an entrepreneur?
Very limiting.
Yes.
Very limiting.
Yes.
So common law now allows you to explore, try things, and then when there's a problem, common law says, "Whoops, there's a problem. Let's meet. Let's look at it, and let's make a ruling on this now."
Exactly.
from
And
there.
then the judges,
Got it.
exactly. At that
Mhm.
point, the judges come together because this is a new problem. Now, anything that they have already figured out, let's say this particular type of problem happened, and you and I came together, we
You
went to the
refer,
judge. And
you
next time
refer
it
back.
happens, next time it happens, we already know how it's going to be judged
Yeah.
because we already know the ruling, which way it's going to go. So there too, it's
Exactly.
good because there is almost like you can predict almost, right?
You have
But
precedent. Yeah.
exactly, and you see why also something like that is more in line with who we are as people,
It's
who we
also more
are.
flexible. It's also more flexible. It adjusts itself to the situation
Yes,
as opposed to being very rigid.
yes,
I like to think of it in terms of, I'm an accountant by profession, and there are two approaches to accounting. One is to be principle based, and another one is to be prescriptive based.
yes.
American accounting has been very prescriptive based, while Canadian, which is where I studied, Canadian accounting is more principle based. So we look for the substance of the transaction and you apply the principles to this. While in the American system, no, you don't. Here's the prescription.
Yeah.
Make sure if you can't fit, you have a problem now because this is a bit unique. Where does it fit? And of course, eventually they apply common law to fix it later on, but it's too prescriptive. So I fully understand what you're saying. So Senegal and many countries who follow that, they're actually stifling progress, stifling
But
entrepreneurs.
yeah, and it's worse than even progress because if you think about it, that's another simple equation of mine that I put together for people. Prosperity, I mean, poverty is solved by prosperity,
Mhm.
not poverty alleviation. Prosperity.
Right.
Poverty is solved by poverty. I'm sorry, poverty is solved by prosperity.
Prosperity, yeah.
Prosperity is built by entrepreneurs. What do entrepreneurs need? An enabling business environment. Foundational of it, a common law system. Foundation.
Absolutely.
It's foundation.
Let's repeat that. Let's repeat that for our listeners and our viewers because this is
Uh-huh.
important. The
Yeah.
solution to poverty is
Listen,
prosperity.
poverty is solved by prosperity.
Prosperity. Yes.
Prosperity is built by entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
Entrepreneurs need an enabling business environment.
Now, socialism.
Root foundation of that environment is a common law system.
Mhm. Mhm.
So now when I tell you this, you start to understand all of a sudden why Anglophone nations are doing better than Francophone nations. Because Francophone nations, part of a deal with France when they were leaving was you are going to have to keep the civil law because that's what them, the French, understand. All the systems are connected. All our systems are connected to the French system. It's another way of them just being very familiar with who we are and what we do. Where most of the Anglophone nations, although the British people did not require anything of their colonies when they left, the colonies for the most part kept the British common law, which we could all argue. If you ask me, I think this is British common law is a godsend. It's a godsend. I call this a technology. It's a godsend one. So all of these what do you call them? These colonies, they kept that, and I really believe it's at the root of why they're doing much better than we are. Now, the reason why they're not doing as well as Britain could have done, and Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew we're talking about here, has done, is because they have not pushed the barriers more. Let's just think about it. The ideal foundation is common law. The ideal foundation is common law. And on top of that common law, what you'll do is you try and really have as free market systems as possible. Meaning, you provide economic freedom to the people. Meaning that to start and run a business, to register a business legally, it shouldn't take people forever. It shouldn't cost them too much. The labor laws should be more flexible than they are now. Senegalese employees are the most protected employees in the world on paper, meaning that if you really were to follow the law, which very few Senegalese entrepreneurs do, because 95% to 97% of the businesses in Senegal are in the informal sector. By the way, why are we in the informal sector? Because to be legal would mean
it's too costly.
the tax
Yeah,
code to figure out the
it's
employees you can't fire,
yeah.
everything
It's a
is
lot of headache. It's a lot of headache.
there you go.
And so
There you go.
basically what the time that you'd spend doing your business, you're doing government paperwork.
Dealing with bureaucracy. You're dealing with
Yeah,
bureaucracy, and
yeah.
so this is what the problem we have. So, Anglophone nations are doing better than Francophone nations because they at least have a right foundation of common law system rather than civil law system. But I argue that they could have done way better a la Singapore style if only they had followed real free market principles on top of it.
And that is the key. That is the key. So I want to go back for a bit. You mentioned it, the socialism of the first 40 years, so to speak. Socialism is not very amenable to free markets. They hate free markets.
It's the opposite.
In
Yes.
fact, civil law is very much akin to socialism. Civil law works very well with socialism.
That's right.
Because you have a master up above who tries to say everything that you can do and everything you can't do, and to keep you very contained. And that's why you end up with labor laws like the ones you just described. Because now if you hire someone, you've taken on a huge risk.
Yeah.
And
you can let them go. You can't let them go. Joseph, when you want to hire somebody in Senegal, you have to have the approval of the state. Same when you want to fire them. And you're gonna and you see this is the other problem we're gonna have too. Maybe your Senegalese friends, your Senegalese audience is gonna listen to this. The sad thing is, how many of the people running a business in Senegal are really have a legitimate business? Meaning, I'm not saying that the business is not legit; they're not doing business. But what I mean is it a formal business?
Right.
Is it registered formally? Are you going to the IPRES every month? Are you going to the La Caisse d'Assurance Nationale every month? Are you paying all of these things every month? And are you doing that? Now it's every 3 months, just to make it a bit better. Whatever. So that's another thing too. At first, until like maybe a year ago, you had to every month, literally, somebody had to physically go to 3 different government offices to pay payroll-related taxes.
Yeah.
You get it anyway. So I digress. But my point is, you would have some Senegalese people hear me, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Especially when I say Senegalese employees are the most protected on paper in the world, among the most. And they're like, "What type of Africa do you live in?" That's not true. People are not being paid. They're not even being paid for 6 months, 5 months. People are being treated poorly. I said, you're probably talking about people who are in the informal sector, probably. Also, people maybe working for the multinationals. Because, see, what you have is when you only have 95 to 97% of people in the businesses in the informal sector, what it means is that you have only 3% or so who are formal. Most of those are multinationals. And so what happens is you have people who work in the informal for the most part. And what rights are you going to try to have upheld? What? Because you don't technically exist as an employee. You don't. This business is not formal. And then for the ones who are formal, you're going to complain about multinationals treating you badly. Do you know why? Because they're the only game in town offering a formal job with all the protections attached to it, and people are willing to do and take any form of abuse to keep this stupid job because there's not that.
So the very system incentivizes the shadow market, the
informal sector.
The informal sector. The very system encourages that by default. The very system also gives the formal players more power than they otherwise would have, because you have eliminated a more thriving full free market economy where everybody could be above board. Yes, the government would have less regulation. I don't know why they need more, but it also get more taxes. They would have a more well-developed economy. And but the socialist mindset says you can't do that, because as a socialist, you're afraid of free markets. Free markets are bad. Right?
The problem with the socialist is, first of all, they have it very backward. So the people who are more on the socialist and at an extreme, if you're a communist, those guys are more focused on, they're more focused on equity. At the end of the day, they think we should all end in the same place. regardless of where we started, we all should end in the same place. And I would say that pragmatic people understand why that makes no sense. But that's this utopia that these socialists have that never has worked, never will work. And so the problem also with socialists is they start from their philosophy starts with the fact that they believe also that businesses, owners, whether you're a homeowner, business owner, that businesses are bad. And because they're bad on their own, they're bad. So the only way to make sure they don't take advantage of people, don't do bad things to people, it's you have to put guardrails around them. These guardrails are what we call regulations and rules at the end of the day. And so that's a socialist mindset. They start with a mindset of business equals bad, therefore we need to put guardrails. Where the other side, free market, people are more understand that prosperity again is built by entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurs need an enabling business environment. You see, it's an upside way of looking at the world.
It's diametrically opposed, but here's which I was going to talk about this later, but I'll talk about it now. It's really they're not understanding, first of all, the need to respect the individual.
Yes.
That, as an individual, if you start there, you fix all the problems. If you look at each Senegalese, each Jamaican, each person, anywhere you are a sovereign person, a sovereign entity, and should be respected to be able to make your own choices. And of course, the choices you make sometimes may be bad. It may fail. So
but it's first.
The role of government is not to stop you from failing. The role of government is to stop persons who are criminals from hurting you. So if somebody wants to take your life or take away your freedom or take away your property, let's stop those people from doing that. But we're not going to make you equal to your brothers and sisters. We're not going to make you economically equal to somebody else. Because take, for example, Jamaica. We have one sportsman, Usain Bolt. You know him.
I love him.
Suppose we were to try to make every
Joseph, you and I will die in training. You and I would die in training.
But guess what would happen? You would not have a Usain Bolt because he would not be allowed to run that fast.
That's
because
right.
the way socialistic system works, they keep back everybody because some can't run fast enough. You have to stop. You have to stop some of us from doing so well, because if we do so well, you're going to have income disparity. You're going to have income inequality. And if the goal in life is for us to have income equality, that's not the goal. The goal in life is to